If you have revenue, you've eliminated the risk that you can attract customers or users. If you have customers or users, you've eliminated the risk that your prototype can be made to work. So each time you move down to one of those milestones, you have eliminated a risk for your investors. So the risk is lowest at the bottom and highest at the top. It ends with core lessons. If you just flip through it, you'll notice that some of the pages, one page for each chapter, for example, this one, is slightly grayed. Do you see that? It's the last page of each chapter. That summarizes the core lessons for that chapter. Here's what I'd suggest you do on the plane home. Just go through and read all the core lessons. Maybe fold down or circle the ones you're interested in the most or you're not sure you understood fully, then go back and read those chapters. That's a quick way to make good use of the book. One nice thing about the book is, since you know the overall structure, we've talked about it yesterday, you don't have to read them in order from chapter 1 to the last chapter. You can read them in any order you want, okay? All right. Yesterday, we covered more or less the first 7 chapters of the book, and today we're going to cover highlights of the rest of the book. But first, as you'll recall, that you had a homework assignment, which is to create your STARS chart: skills, technology, assets, accomplishments, relationships, reputation, and strengths. These are all of the resources that you have to start a company and make it a success, or really to do anything in your life at this stage of your life. So may I have a volunteer for someone who would be willing to share their STARS chart with us? And I see a gentleman over here. Please rise and tell us your name. And don't tell us everything in your STARS chart, but tell us 2 or 3 items that you think are particularly significant about your STARS chart. Go ahead. First of all, your name. Okay, let's give him a quick 3. Does everyone know what a quick 3 is? A quick 3 is this. It's a quick, there we go. All right, it's just 3, so it's a quick way to acknowledge someone. Go ahead, Andre.
Skills, I wrote teaching, writing, and editing, and well-read on political science for skills. For technology, I wrote Grammarly, AI, and data literature, and Stata and SPSS. For assets, I wrote laptop, dad who's generous when it concerns like doing productive stuff, and good phone and hardware. For accomplishments, I spoke twice at TED, ghostwritten a lot, and 4 years of journalism work. Relationships, I wrote, have a lot of friends who always ask me for business, and also friends in journalism, politics, and government. And reputation, well, decent credit score, a lot of international experience. And strength is fiercely independent and think critically, and just being autonomous and leadership skills.
Okay. And why are these particular items most important from your standpoint?
Well, it's because it was these that I used when I was in high school to sort of in college to sort of run a small ghostwriting business where I used to help students who were smart and who were rich but not very well articulate to sort of write their final papers and help them apply to
Okay. All right. Well, how about a quick 3? Ready? Great. Thank you. So presumably those skills that you've selected have helped you get where you are, and you'll continue to use them in the future. Do I have another volunteer? Yes, sir. Give us your name and then just 3 elements from the entire chart. Yes, go ahead. And you deserve a quick 3 too. Here we go. Ready?
Thank you so much. My name is Abdul Ali Ismailzada, just Ali, just to be short. So, budgeting, commercial space, and design menu.
And what was the third one?
Design menu.
Design
menu. M-E-N-U.
A menu, okay. And why are these 3 items most significant from your standpoint?
Because I think these are the pillars of what I want to do with the business.
All right. And what would the business be?
The business is a small business.
Yeah.
It's a coffee shop.
Okay. All right. Good for you. Thank you. Ready? All right. Who has the most items on their stars chart? As I mentioned, there will be a prize. There is a prize for the person with the most items. Who has more than 30 items on their stars chart? Anyone? Okay. Hold your hands up high if you would. Who has more than 40 items on your stars chart? Hold your hands up. Okay. Do I see your hand up, sir? Okay. Anyone else with more than 40 items? Okay, all right. Do either of you gentlemen have more than 50 items? Oh my goodness. And I see one over here. Hold those hands up. How many have, and another one over here, how many more than 60 items? Oh my gosh. All right. How many more than, just anyone else that has 60 items or more? All right. Well, Abdullah, I think you win our award. So congratulations. And Bill is back here, and he's going to tell us what the award is.
Why, thank you. You've won this Amanda Radar ring. Now, I will get you a book on liberty of your choosing that's reasonably priced. But of your choice, because I don't know what your library is. So talk to me afterwards, and we'll do that through Amazon.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Congratulations again. Good job. All right. Incidentally, notice that a customer need was satisfied from yesterday. I have a longer cable now, so I can move around. All right, you'll recognize the stars diagram, and I want to call your attention to this step 4A in the middle. Yesterday I said we talked about how important it is to start with the customer need, and that way, that is in the upper left-hand corner of the chart, and that way you know that you're really satisfying a real customer need. Well, I suggested that was true all of the time, but I would say it's true 80% of the time. 20% of the time, and it's a good discipline to do that, but perhaps 20% of the world's innovations came not from starting with the customer need, but starting from a unique product, service, or technology. In the book, I list a few of them: popcorn, linoleum, penicillin, and so forth, vulcanized rubber. In each case, this unique material was available, and the inventor had to search for an application for it. So I don't want you to overlook this possibility. It's especially relevant if one or more of the items on your stars chart are unique. Let me give you a couple of examples. My friend Ray Daly in Columbus, Texas, when he was just a teenager, spent his life savings to buy this 1965 fire engine red Ford Thunderbird. Beautiful car. And he was as happy as a clam driving around his small town. Everyone knew the boy in the car. Well, one night his brother asked if he could borrow the car, and he said yes. And his brother ran a stop sign, collided with an Oldsmobile, and totaled the Oldsmobile and smashed the front end of the Thunderbird. Well, as you can imagine, Ray was furious. And the boy's father, to get the matter behind them quickly, had Ray's brother reimburse the owner of the Oldsmobile for the value of the Oldsmobile. And Ray wanted his dad to make his brother also reimburse Ray for the repairs to the front end of his Thunderbird, but his father said, no, you get the Oldsmobile. Well, what a hassle. What good is a totaled Oldsmobile when I have a smashed up front end? So he had to sell the parts off the Oldsmobile to see if, to get the money to do the repairs on the front end. So he put an ad letting people know that he had an Oldsmobile, and then he went around looking for a 1965 Thunderbird front end that he could take the parts off of. and put them on his car. Well, he found a lady in his neighborhood who had 6 junked cars in her neighborhood, one of which was a 65 Oldsmobile that had 65 Thunderbird that has no engine in it. Perfect. He could take the front end off the junked car, put it on his car, and he'd be done. Well, that was fine, except that the lady who had the 6 junked cars said he could only have the Thunderbird if he also hauled away all 6 cars. Well, what a hassle again. He didn't have any place to put the cars, and but the lady insisted, and so together, he and a buddy of his moved those 6 vehicles to Ray Daly's ranch, where he was living with his folks, and he took it from there. So now he had 6 junked cars, and people started calling him, hey, would you have a transmission for a Volkswagen? Would you have a steering column for a Oldsmobile, and so forth? And even though Ray was only a teenager, he realized he was the startings of a business there. Those 7 junked cars became Daily Iron and Metal, which became a $1 million business with 9 employees. So, and this was while he was a teenager, before he even finished college. So if you have an unusual asset in your portfolio, don't overlook it just because but spend some time, make the investment to try to find a customer need that it might satisfy. Be prepared to work extra hard validating that customer need, because it's easy to deceive ourselves, as I mentioned yesterday, when we have a unique product or technology that there's a customer need for it, because we're enamored with it, even if there really isn't. Here's another example of the same thing. My friend Paul Cook, who's sadly now deceased, back in the 1940s, was exposed early on to radiation chemistry. And if you radiate certain polymers, they turn into lightweight insulators. Paul searched all over for an application for lightweight insulators. What could they possibly use it for? Well, turns out on jet aircraft, weight is particularly important. And so by using, the insulators are the covering on those wires that you see in the lower right. And by using a very lightweight set of insulators, you can save something like 750 pounds on a jet aircraft. Well, especially for military aircraft, that's particularly important. So that became a $2 billion business, Ray Kim. So again, don't overlook how some of the resources you have might satisfy customer need. Should you have a co-founder in your business? Well, in the early 2000s, referring back to customer sat, which I talked about yesterday, my second company, which was in online customer feedback, our code base had become unreliable, slow in performance, and full of bugs because too many quick fixes had been made by too junior engineers too quickly. And I lost a director of engineering because to her, the problems just seemed insurmountable. So I had to hire a new head of engineering. And I met Dickie Singh. Dickie is Sikh, as you can tell from his turban. And I imagine a lot of hiring managers saw the turban and thought, oh, he doesn't fit our corporate culture. Well, if so, that was their great loss and our great gain. Because Dickie is passionate about technology, attracts good people to work with him, and he quickly came on board, comprehended our code base in its entirety, figured out ways to avoid the problematic areas of code by coding around them rather than fixing them, because very often if you try to fix code, you introduce more bugs. Dickie quickly took on responsibility for not just software development, but QA, customer service, tech support, web operations, freeing me up to focus on the things that I like the best, namely products, dealing with customers, and sales. There's nobody else in the world I would rather start another company with than Dickey Singh. And indeed, we're collaborators together in my entrepreneurship advisory and angel investing practice. So what to look for in a co-founder? Somebody whose skills are complementary to yours, whom you trust, whose work ethic you respect. Those are some of the key things. I think of the 3 C's: character, complementarity, and ability to co-create. Of those 3, character is the most fundamental. There are many dimensions of character, including all, well, I don't list them there. I list 14 different dimensions in the book. Things like honesty, integrity, work ethic, teamwork, affability, friendliness, humility, and so forth. You have to decide which of those are most important to you. But this character overall is independent of which direction your company goes in. The other 2 are specific to your company and its strategy, but character is sort of like the absolute value of the person, independent of any of those. Second is complementarity. You don't want somebody whose skills are identical or heavily overlapping with yours. Ideally, it's somebody who's complementary to yours. If you're a real technical person, it would be great to perhaps find a business-oriented person, or vice versa. If you are in my realm where I come from engineering, if I'm more focused on hardware, it's ideal if I can find a co-founder who's focused on software and so forth. And then ability to co-create a vision. Remember, you're both co-founders, and so you don't have to have exactly the same goal and direction for the company, but it has to be substantially the same, because if you guys are pulling in different directions, it's not going to work. So there's much more about this in the chapter 1 + 1 = 3. And notice that, remember how we talked about stars charts? It's a good exercise if you're contemplating bringing somebody on as a co-founder, or wondering if there's the right person as the co-founder for you. Have them, or together, maybe you could draw your stars chart and then see how complementary they are. And remember, the customer need that you can satisfy depends upon your joint stars, so you have a lot more resources to draw on now that you have a co-founder. Also, the number of combinations of items in your stars chart increases with the square of the number of items. To be exact, it's n times n minus 1 over 2. And so if you have twice as many items in your stars chart together, assuming you both have a comparable number of items in each of your charts, and so the number of possible combinations, possible things that you can innovate from your knowledge increases by the square. Now, let's talk about your competitors. Who are your competitors? And let's take a specific example. Our voice calls and texting competitors. How many people think voice calls and texting are competitors? Raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, how many people don't think they're competitors? Okay, quite a few more of us, maybe twice as many, maybe 15 of us or so. Okay, well, consider this. If you want to have a long extended conversation with an old friend, probably you're not going to text them, right? You're going to call them on the phone. But on the other hand, let's say there's just a brief, urgent piece of information you want to convey to a friend. Probably you're not going to call them, you're just going to text them, right? Okay, so those two extreme cases are quite separate. You clearly would choose one or the other. But let me introduce some gray areas. What if you want to explain something to somebody? It's not too complicated, but it is going to involve a few sentences. And you may think of it as something additional as you're writing those sentences, or composing those sentences. So that could possibly go either way, right? Or how about this? Let's say that you've just talked to somebody on the phone and then you remember one more thing. Well, you might call them back or you might text them, right? So that could kind of go either way too. So let me suggest a framework for when something is a competitor or not, when it addresses the same customer need. And so that's how to think about it. The products or services may be very different. They may not at all be similar, but if they satisfy the same need, you could think of them as competitors. So how do you compete with companies that might be very much larger than you, like Fortune 500 companies? Well, let's look at the laptop industry. HP, Lenovo, and Dell all make laptops. Each of those laptops is better than the other laptop in some fashion. They all run Microsoft Windows. One has a larger screen, another one has more memory, another one has a faster processor. Apple, on the other hand, is different. Oops, sorry about that. Apple does not run Microsoft Windows. Apple runs iOS. It tightly integrated the operating system and the hardware from the outset, making it easier to use. Initially, the Mac OS was ideal for a very specific set of applications, things like desktop publishing, later photography, later video. But these became mainstream requirements, and as they did, Apple and iOS gradually gained market share. And eventually, Apple became more valuable than both Microsoft and Intel, which made the chips that the Intel platforms use together. And today is either the top or the second top most valuable company in the world. So different is better than better. What do I mean by different? I mean a different approach, different design, a different take on the customer need that you can satisfy. By being different, you're not directly attracting competitors. You're not competing with them directly. And you're not the ideal solution for all of those customers, but for some subset of all the customers, you are the ideal solution. And then as they buy from you again and again and tell their friends or colleagues about you, you will grow with them. Being different gives you time and space to get established, even if you're surrounded by much larger companies. So how might that look? Here are three dimensions along which we often compare laptop: screen size, speed, and storage. And you can see on all three of them, the Mac is not particularly outstanding on any of those dimensions. However, if you look at video, music, and photography, the Mac is unambiguously the best choice, or has been for much of its history. That's what you want your chart to look like. You don't have to be relative to other companies the best on every dimension, but you want to have some specific dimensions where you are unambiguously the best choice. And then you want to focus on customers who can make get the most value out of those dimensions. Okay? Any questions or comments about that before I go on? Scalability. We hear a lot about scalability. What is scalability? Scalability is increasing revenue or profit in your business for each additional dollar invested in your business. And so in this picture, the green company is much more scalable than the red company. Probably it's more automated and less labor intensive. But we'll get into that in just a moment. Why is scalability important, or why should it concern you? Well, it should concern you because it concerns every business. And here are 3 reasons. 1, it lets you grow more rapidly and efficiently with less capital if you are more scalable, and that means you can increase the value of your business with less capital, give up less capital to investors. 2, it gives you more options. If there are changes in the competitive environment, if you have new competitors, if a competitor steals away some of your best customers or employees, you can more readily adapt to those changes. And 3, it increases the value of your business to potential investors or acquirers. So scalability is important to every business. There are 2 chapters in the book that focus on scalability. They are Think Big, that we've already talked about, and Scaling Your Business, towards the front and towards the back. So let me just say a few words about each of these. The first step to scaling your business is thinking big. In fact, if I had to say what's the biggest mistake I've made in my career, it is not thinking big enough. What is the biggest customer need that you could satisfy? Could you satisfy not just everybody who, every certain type of customer, but other customers or businesses, or not just within the US, but globally? Think about what is the biggest opportunity you could address. So, and then use the bowling pin model that we talked about to divide up that huge opportunity into segments, bowling pins. Figure out which one you could most easily knock down first. And then once you've knocked that one down, i.e. gained significant market penetration and awareness in that segment, what would be the next one you could knock down, then the next one and the next one, and so forth. And so that's the thinking big part of it. Now let me get into the nuts and bolts of scalability. Broadly, there are 2 ways for any company to become more scalable. 1 is by improving its operational performance, and 2 is by adopting a more scalable business model. Now, both of these are applicable. It's not either or. It's you want to adopt both of them to the extent that you can. So what would be examples of this? Well, improving operational performance. Here are 3 examples. 1, streamlining processes so that it takes fewer people to handle purchase orders and invoices, say. Or 2, providing IT to let your telesales people handle more orders. Or 3, providing tools, maybe a database to help your tech support staff handle more cases per hour. All of those would be improving your operational performance. And for those, we have metrics. And that's the whole value of metrics, is to let you track how you're doing and to see how you can improve. Here are some common metrics. Now, what about adopting a more scalable business model? Well, instead of streamlining processes, how about eliminating processes? Rather than have purchase orders and invoices, take credit cards or outsource the entire function to an app. 2 is rather than have telesales, how about eliminating the telesales? Let people place their orders online themselves. Instead of letting tech support people handle more cases, how about eliminating tech support and letting your customers support each other and incentivizing them and compensating them to do so? And maybe having a backup tech support staff, but much smaller. These would be ways of adopting a more scalable business model. And as I mentioned before, they're both important. So let me talk about 3 specific ways to shift to a more scalable business model. Becoming more automated and less labor intensive, incorporating network effects, and incorporating more intelligence into your product or service. So first, let's look at an example of investing in automation and market expansion. Here is an initial case where we have a very simple P&L, and we're selling 10,000 units, and there's our gross profit, less fixed costs and so forth, and you can see a net profit of $8,000. Okay, so let's consider 4 possible combinations in total. This one, where we invest in automation and invest $50,000 in fixed cost. This one, where we invest in market expansion, which is $10,000 in fixed cost and marketing, and this one where we do both, okay? All right, so we'll go through them one at a time. So this one, if we invest in automation, that's great, but we've sold the same number of units and now our fixed costs are higher, so we actually come out behind. Our net profit is 0. In this one, we expand the market through advertising or marketing, and we double the number of units that we sell, and so our profit doubles. So it's somewhat better, but it hasn't really increased scalability that much. Where we increase scalability is by doing both of them together, increasing automation and market expansion. And now you can see our profit has increased by a factor of 5. So that's a general approach for how a combination of automation and marketing can make your business more scalable. Technology can make it more scalable. Let me consider 3 different industries: dating, custom furniture, and delivery. And consider for each of those 3 different approaches for less to more scalable. What's the old-fashioned way of doing dating, and which is still done in many parts of the world and the U.S.? Well, it's somebody who has a Rolodex of eligible young men and women, probably, who are interested in dating, and he or she tries to think of who might be a good fit with each other. Not very scalable at all. How could we improve on that? Well, the client completes an online profile and the system finds the best match. So many apps online like Tinder and Hinge and so forth use that model. What would be even more scalable? Well, what if you didn't have to fill out the online profile? What if the system were smart enough to read your social media, your Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so forth, make some inferences about it, and try to find out or figure out who you would be a good match with? Even something as simple as the photos that you post on social media tell a great deal about you. Are the photos mostly just individuals, or are they groups of people that include you or don't even include you? Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt, but just to make a point out of this, but isn't like having AI read clients' social media a privacy concern?
Well,
or couldn't that become a privacy concern?
Well, it well could be. Maybe it's an opt-in sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting there aren't any controls that need to be implemented here. Okay, so that would be even more scalable, wouldn't it? Because I don't have to do any work, and the system uses all of its experience, knowledge, intelligence, and so forth to figure out who might be a good fit for me. Okay, how about custom furniture? Well, the old-fashioned way is for a craftsman to make furniture to your specifications, right? Not at all scalable. What would be more scalable? Well, if the client is provided with online tools, so I can design the furniture myself and then have either the craftsman make them or maybe automated machine tooling make them. What would be even more scalable? Well, I'm not very skilled at knowing or designing furniture. Maybe I could select different furniture, but what would be ideal might be, or even more scalable, would be if I could simply upload a photograph of the room, the other furniture that's in the room that I want the new piece of furniture to match with and to fit within, and the system would figure out all of that, how big it can be, what color it should be to match the items that I want to keep, and then perhaps offer me some choices. Delivery services. Well, the old-fashioned way is having a bunch of trucks and drivers. Very expensive, very capital-intensive. What would be more scalable? Well, the Uber model or Lyft model, contracting with existing drivers who have their own vehicles and compensating them for all the deliveries they make. What would be even more scalable? Well, the Waymo model, autonomous vehicles making deliveries. And something that gives me great pleasure is that the book came out 10 years ago in 2015. And back in those days, you know, it was way before Waymo and even Uber and Lyft were still relatively new. And a lot of the sample business models that I suggested 10 years ago are becoming realities. So you'll notice that maybe as you go through the book. Okay, so those are different ways to increase technology or to increase scalability using technology. Network effects. How many people have heard the term network effects? Okay, well, a few of us, maybe a third of us. What I mean by this is a business model where for each additional customer you gain, you become more attractive to attracting more customers. So think of the phone network. Everybody has a phone, so you want to have one too so you can reach all those people. Think of a platform that you want to develop an application for. If there is not very many people using that platform, you won't be able to sell many apps. But if there are lots of people, and for each additional person who joins an app, that platform becomes more attractive to you for developing your app for that platform. So that's what network effects are. And there are broadly two different types of network effects, one-sided and two-sided. One-sided is where all the users are substantially the same. Two-sided is where there are two different types of users who attract each other. So examples of one-sided networks are all of the popular social media platforms, Instagram, WhatsApp, Google, Facebook, and so forth. All of these people, the more people who are on there, the more attractive it is for you. And actually, the business models are evolving somewhat because posters and consumers of social media are more and more differentiating into two separate categories. But generally, these are one-sided. Two-sided are where there is explicitly two types of users. For example, buyers and sellers. The more buyers there are, the more sellers want to be on that platform. The more hiring sites, the more hiring managers and companies that are on the site, the more people who are job seeking want to be on that site. The more job seekers there are, the more hiring managers it attracts. Dating sites, the more guys that are on the site, the more gals are attracted. The more gals that are there, the more guys are attracted, and so forth. Yes?
Would Facebook be a two-sided because there's a Facebook dating app I see on Facebook? Would that be a two-sided because it says welcome to Facebook dating?
Could you speak up, please? Could you say that again?
I thought Facebook would be on the two-sided because there's this thing called welcome to Facebook dating that pops on my phone sometimes when I'm on Facebook. So I thought that would be on a two-sided one because I know some people could be on there too, possibly, like Tinder.
Tinder would probably be two-sided. Is this, and the app you're talking about is like Tinder?
Facebook, I thought it would be the two-sided because it says welcome to dating app on Facebook.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yes, that feature or aspect of Facebook would be more two-sided. Thank you. Yeah, good good observation. Okay, yes, sir.
And what about like TikTok now? Because before TikTok was more of a one-sided thing because it acted more like a social media platform.
Yes.
With the introduction of TikTok Shop, now you can just post anything and you can attach products to those posts.
Yes. I mean, I think as these apps mature, they and gain different functionalities. Some aspects of the apps are still one-sided and some are two-sided. And also, as people tend to shift into either consumers or posters of content, so the consumers are attracted to the posters, and posters are attracted to more and more consumers of content. That too is an evolution from one-sided to two-sided. Yeah, so lots of dynamics going on here. Okay, so any business can experience some form of network effects. And this is a step-by-step process that's in the book, where even though you're currently selling to individual customers, your customers, after all, do have something important in common, don't they? They all use your product or service. And so they have some interests in common. So if you can leverage and exploit that interest, that's what these different steps do. So introduce your customers to each other, post content on a website or through an app that they value, maybe how to use your product, different experiences from different customers using your product. Enable the product, eventually the customers to interact directly, ask questions, answer questions, act as experts, and so forth. Maybe also allow them to interact in real life. Have an annual conference or quarterly meetups or coffees or whatever, where you can build a sense of community around your product. Your product is now becoming a platform. And then optionally go two-sided. Find another group that's complementary to your group. But this one, I'll say more about why this is optional. The first 5 steps apply to any business. So going two-sided, let's say that the left-hand column there indicates who you're selling to. Who might be complementary users that you could include in your app or on your site? Well, if you're builders, if you sell to builders, builders need architects, don't they? If you sell to farmers, farmers need fertilizer and farm equipment. If you sell to dentists, the customers for dentists at least some of them need orthodontists. So these other groups might also be interested in being part of your platform. They might just be advertising on it, in which case they're not really a side, but you could develop the application for them to come together. But this is risky because, as it says there, does adequately serving both groups' needs compromise the exceptional service you could provide just one group or the other? Let me use the example of homeowners and realtors. Are you looking for, are you primarily serving the homeowner, or are you primarily serving the realtor? If I'm a homeowner looking for a new home, I want to make sure your app really supports me rather than my realtor. You know, our interests are mostly aligned, but not completely aligned. My realtor might want to sell me a more expensive home than I can afford just to get a bigger commission. And so that's the kind of risk that you want to be sensitive to there. And then increasing the intelligence in your product or service. As you know, I was in the online customer satisfaction measurement business for almost 20 years in 2 different companies. And a key aspect of that is generating survey analytics online and giving people the tools to analyze those analytics throughout the enterprise. Well, before we had much in the way of online analytics, our project managers had to do the charts and tables and so forth manually. When we were able to automate that process and put them online, I remember one of our project managers telling me that it saved him 2 days per month, not having to generate those end-of-month reports on customer satisfaction for the clients he was responsible for. So that made our business more scalable. The more elaborate and extensive the reporting that we generated, the more scalable we became because we provided more value at minimal additional cost. Another example is this stuffed bear that can have a simple conversation with a child. The bear contains a processor, memory, some AI, and again, this is an example that I had in the book 10 years ago. If you can increase the processing power and the memory of the bear so it can have a meaningful conversation with not just a 3-year-old, but with a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old. Obviously, it has to have more intelligence to be able to have a conversation with an older child. Well, you're expanding your market as you do that at relatively low cost, and you're distributing the development cost and the hardware cost over a bigger and bigger market. So another way to make your business more scalable, increase the intelligence in the product or service. So in summary, any startup can be made more scalable in any of the ways that we've talked about. Okay? All right. How do the really big companies in the IT industry scale, or how have they scaled over their histories? Let's take a look at that because it's interesting. They all enjoy network effects in some fashion. Microsoft and in fact, all Microsoft and Apple both, because they have platforms, and the more users that they have on those platforms, the more apps they attract, the more apps they have, the more people buy those platforms and so forth. The platforms may be Windows, they may be the iPhone, they may be Mac OS or other platforms. Amazon, the more buyers they have, the more customers they have, the more third-party merchants they attract to their site. So they also enjoy network effects. So let's see how they've grown. So Microsoft started out with BASIC and MS-DOS way back when, expanded to Excel and the Office suite, and then on top of that has expanded into cloud services and made this investment in ChatGPT. So what we see there is as each business matured and became a stable, reliable platform, they built a new business on top of it. We see that same pattern in Amazon. They started out just selling books online and expanded into all household products and then Amazon Web Services. Same with Apple broadly. It started out with the Apple II, then the Mac, then the iPod, iPhone, iPad, and now the apps, the Watch and Vision Pro and so forth. So use each business as a platform to build your next business. Raising money. Should you raise money? If so, when? And if so, how much? Well, this is a hard question to answer in general because so much of it depends upon the specifics of your business. But I'll say as much as I can in general about these questions. So first of all, should you raise money? Well, no, if you don't want to be held accountable to a board of directors, if you want to just run the business yourself without being accountable to anyone other than to your customers, and you're okay with growing the business through whatever cash you can generate through cash flow and perhaps loans that you are obligated to pay back. And of course, lots of companies, probably most companies in the U.S., mostly smaller companies, never raise money. But beware, because if you have few cash reserves and competitors win some of your best customers, come out with a better product, or there's a major economic downturn, you may have fewer options. So be cautious. On the other hand, if you have an innovative solution that's unique, that addresses a large opportunity, that demands additional capital, and you don't mind being held accountable to a board of directors or possibly losing control of the company. Most entrepreneurs eventually do, either when the company is acquired or it goes public or goes out of business. Then raising equity, that is selling stock, is very likely your best course. So it's a very personal decision. If you're the sole decision maker, it can be up to you. If you have co-founders, it's something you have to negotiate with them. Now, when to raise? Yes, sir.
Did you raise money or?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, both of my companies. My first company I raised from venture capital firms. SoftBank was an investor in Decisive. My second company, I raised corporate capital. Two corporations invested in us, the best known of which was J.D. Power and Associates. They were a familiar brand in customer satisfaction measurement. And so having them as investors was a great boon for us, a great credibility builder. The other corporate investor we had was Nice Systems, that is an Israeli company that makes quality monitoring equipment for call centers. So that was also a relevant experience base for us, because much of our online services we sold into call centers. I would say 98% of the companies, as an angel, what does it mean to be an angel investor, first of all? An angel investor is somebody who just invests their own funds rather than representing other funds, like a formal venture capital firm invests not only the partner's own funds, but institutional investors like insurance companies and government pension funds and so forth. So as a result of that, I see lots of business plans, and I would say 98% of them try to raise money before they're ready. And an outcome of that is they make a negative first impression. They spend a lot of time, they waste a lot of time trying to raise money, and they don't have any negotiating leverage. So if they are successful, it's not a very attractive deal for them. In contrast, if you wait until the right time, you're in a strong negotiating position. The deal comes together quickly. You don't have to spend as much time, and you can get back to doing what you want to do and what your investors want you to do, which is running and growing the company, not raising money. So the question is, what are these right times to raise money? And let me give you two broad sets of times to raise money. One, when you reduce investor risk, and two, when you can demonstrate upside potential. To be very clear, it is not when you've run out of money, or even when you're about to run out of money. That's when a lot of entrepreneurs first start thinking about raising money. Oh my gosh, we're running out of money, or we're out of money, we've got to raise money from somewhere. That's the worst possible time to do it, because you have no credibility or leverage at all. So what are these right times? Well, let me talk about both of them, when you reduce investor risk and when you can demonstrate upside potential. First of all, when you reduce investor risk. So look at this chart. If you have positive cash flow, you have eliminated a risk in the company. You've eliminated the risk that you can get revenue, haven't you? Necessarily, because if you have positive cash flow, you must have revenue. If you have revenue, you've eliminated the risk that you can attract customers or users. If you have customers or users, you've eliminated the risk that your prototype can be made to work. And if your prototype works, then you've eliminated the risk that your idea can be reduced to practice. So each time you move down to one of those milestones, you have eliminated a risk for your investors. So the risk is lowest at the bottom and highest at the top. So a very good time to raise money, in my experience, is right before and after, and I'll explain that, you reach one of those milestones. So let's say you're very confident you're going to reach a major milestone in the next 60 to 90 days. It could be your first revenue from a major account, or your first 10,000 downloads of users of your app, or your first reseller agreement with a major reseller, whatever it is. That's a good time to go to investors, introduce yourselves, step them through all the aspects of your business plan. And I outline those in the book. I believe it's on page 266. In just a moment, I'll bring up a slide that has that exact page number on it. And then tell them that in the next 60 to 90 days, we expect to do X, whatever it is. And then say, we'd like to come back again after that, after we've done that, and talk with you again. And then go do what you said you were going to do. And then after you've done it, go back and tell them again, show them again, and show them you did X, that you said you were going to do X. That's very impressive. That starts building your relationship with investors even before they have invested in you. And they may or may not invest in you, but they will remember those were the guys who said they were going to do X, and they did X. They may refer you to a different venture firm or whatever, or they may invest in you in a subsequent round. So that's one approach. The other broad set of times is when you can demonstrate upside potential. And what's a good way to think about that? Again, using the bowling pin model. So let's say that this is for regions around Northern California. Let's say you have started selling your product or service in Soma, south of Market. That's a part of San Francisco. And then you've expanded into San Francisco, and then you've just started to make sales in, say, Oakland or San Jose. Or let's say it's your initial sales are all in the tech industry, but you've just started to knock down the telecom and financial services bowling pins by having your first initial customers there. Or it could be you've in the enterprise, most of your sales have been into customer service, but you've got some sales into the sales departments and marketing departments. Great. The fact that you have those sales in the subsequent bowling pins shows the upside potential. If you can do both of these at the same time, show upside potential and show that you're reaching the next milestone on that previous chart, that's ideal. So those are some thoughts about how and when to approach investors. How much money should you raise and how soon? Well, again, this is a question that's really impossible to answer specifically, but I can nonetheless give you some very broad guidance. One, raise more money sooner. The more time and money that's required to reach each of those milestones that we just talked about. Two, the faster you expect your market to grow. Three, the more crowded your market is, and the less differentiation there is between you and your competitors. The more different you are, the less you have to worry about that. The more money your competitors are raising, and the more financial market uncertainty. Let's say that things are very uncertain. Maybe you think, or there's speculation, the economy is going into a major downturn or a recession, then you would clearly want to raise more money now to get you through that, because who knows if you would be able to raise money at an attractive price during that period. Okay, this is the funding pitch outline that I mentioned. It's on page 288, excuse me. I think I said a different number before. And so I find if someone is giving me a pitch, it's really hard to get excited until I hear an unsatisfied customer need. And so I like to hear that at the very outset. What is the real unsatisfied customer need that you're addressing? How are current solutions inadequate? How large is the opportunity? How are you better, different, or unique? What positive results or traction have you gained so far? And maybe you haven't sold your product yet, you don't have any revenue yet, it's before that stage, but you have promising market research or quotes from customers, testimonials, or prospective customers who say they really like what you're doing. That may be the best that you can do in terms of traction. Why your team is best suited. Ideally, your team has backgrounds and experience in the area that you're addressing. What is your revenue model projection and upside potential, using the bowling pin model? And then finally, how much are you seeking and how will you apply the fund? Okay. When we buy a share of stock in, say, an Apple or a Google, we don't really expect, do we, that we're going to significantly increase Apple or Google's chances of success by buying that share of stock, do we? We're just one of, potentially millions of investors. No, the reason that we're buying that share of stock is because we think Apple or Google are already going to be successful, and we want to participate in that success, all right? Similarly, assume that your potential investors have the same mindset. Assume that they're only going to invest in you if you are already going to be successful. Now, they may say that they're eager to help you and grow. Many and everyone will say that, whether or not it's true or not, among the investors. But think about but many of them will only invest if they think you're already going to be successful, whether or not they invest. And so think about how you can convey that you're already going to be successful, whether or not they invest. What are some ways that you can think of, anybody, that you can convey that you're already going to be successful, whether or not some investors invest? Yes, sir.
Yeah, you already have good revenue stream and a good market. You're just looking to expand.
Perfect. Yes. You look at what you've already accomplished without raising the money, and then think how much more you can accomplish with raising the money. Any other thoughts along those lines, or any other? Yes, sir.
You could potentially present a plan of how you would use the additional capital, and show that you're doing well, but you have a hurdle that you can't really get around another way. So there's a plan going into that.
Okay. The fact that you're already doing well builds credibility that if you can address all these previous hurdles, you can address this new hurdle with some additional capital. Anyone else? Maybe that you've already fleshed out your yes, sir. Go ahead.
Going on with this saying is investors invest in startups. So
Could you speak up, please?
sorry, I was kind of nervous to ask this, but if you're investing only in the startups, is it you pitch your idea to the company and it's assuming it's already going to be successful, or is it saying that you start the pitch and then you kind of slowly work your way through it? I remember in the previous seminar, it was one thing at a time. It takes time for these things to happen.
What this is saying is that you want to convey to investors that whether or not they invest, you're going to be successful, that your success is not dependent on their investment. Here's one more way that you could convey that. Who has already invested in your business? X, Y, and Z, other notable investors, prominent entrepreneurs, prominent venture capital firms have already invested. Might be another approach you can use if it applies. The fact that you've already fleshed out your management team and are running on all cylinders and just need to scale up. All of these are different ways that you can convey that. No problem. Thank you. Okay. Now, how do you fund your business before you're ready to raise money? Well, let me suggest 3 ways. 1 is living frugally, 2 is providing services, and 3 is winning over friends and family. So how can you live frugally and provide services? Well, if you do those 2, then they'll see that, hey, you're really serious about this, and then you may be in a better position to win over friends and family to either loan you money or invest in your business. So first of all, living frugally. This is my friend Nick Winter in San Francisco, a successful entrepreneur. He owns exactly 99 physical things. The 99 things are listed there. One laptop, one cell phone, so many pairs of jeans, one wedding ring, and so forth. Now, and when he gets a new item, he deliberately gets rid of another item to keep the total number of items under 99. Now, why would anyone go to all that trouble to reduce the number of physical items that you own down to 99? And I'm not recommending this at all. Well, it does free up your mindset, your mind and attention for other things, because you don't have to worry about your assets and, things go out of style, they go out of date, they wear out and so forth. It's an extreme example of minimalist living. Now, I haven't by any means gone to this extreme, but I can say that when I clear out a closet or for all the clothes that I haven't worn for the last few years, or my kitchen for all the utensils that I haven't used in the last few years, I suddenly have a sense of freedom. I can find the stuff I'm looking for. It's uncluttered, I'm saving time. And so I think there's a lot of merit to the minimal lifestyle. And I think it's advantageous for those of us who are starting businesses. In the book, I give a list of a bunch of very successful entrepreneurs whose names you will recognize, including Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, who leads a very minimalist lifestyle relative to what they could be living, given their wealth. So live frugally. When I wrote the book, a cup of coffee at Starbucks cost, $2.50. Now it's probably twice that, $5 or maybe more. You can probably spend $10 for a single cup of coffee. Well, let's say you spend just $5 a day. That's $25 a week. 5 times 5 is 25. Multiply that by 50. That would be $1,250 a year. Wow, that's real money. You could use $1,250 to buy a gourmet coffee machine and several months' worth of coffee for your first few employees, just by skipping Starbucks for 1 year. So think about what is the lowest hanging fruit in your life? What are the expenses that you could most easily eliminate to free up capital that you could invest in your business instead? I mean, $1,250 might be the difference between being a going concern and having to declare bankruptcy. Because if you had just $1,250, you might be able to pay off one more creditor or buy one more piece of essential equipment so that you can make a shipment and generate revenue. And so skipping Starbucks could possibly just let you avoid bankruptcy. Think about it. In the book, on the pages indicated there are a whole bunch of ideas and suggestions for living frugally, both in your personal life and in your business life. And another way is to provide services. We used this approach in my second company, Customer Sat. So in this is the first product of my first company and the second company. Since we knew intimately, about half a dozen folks came over and joined me at Customer Sat after I started Decisive, after I started Customer Sat from Decisive. And, we knew intimately how to use the product. And so we were able to provide services using the shrink-wrapped product to get our new business underway. And back in those days, the mid-90s, to do a survey on the internet was not the trivial task that it is today. It was, high tech, perhaps comparable to AI would be today. So think about the services that you could provide. Ideally, they're aligned with whatever you whatever service your company is going to provide. And a very respectable way to get your new company started is to provide the services manually and then gradually, step by step, automate them as you have enough cash to pay software developers to implement the steps that you're doing manually in software. And it has many advantages. You're developing relationships with customers as you follow that path. You are learning exactly what the customer requirements are. You're fulfilling real requirements, and so you know what features need to go into the product, and you're generating revenue all at the same time. So live frugally and provide services, and friends and family will see that, hey, you really are serious about this. It will make them more receptive to consider lending you money or investing in your business. Let me conclude by saying a word or two about the ethics of entrepreneurship. What does the word ethical mean to you? Would anyone be willing to offer a definition of the word ethical? Yes, sir. Did I see your hand?
I would say it's ethical would be something, from a religious perspective, it usually would be something that is, following religious principles. Do you want to others to
Something that is...
that follows religious principles, basically?
Follow
Religious principles.
All right. Okay. Yes, sir.
Something that's morally right to do.
Something morally right. Okay. Great. Any other thought? Yes, sir.
That are not harmful to other people or other organizations or our environment.
Things that are not harmful to others. All right. Yes, sir.
Find good and acting in accordance of that path to be good, whatever that good is.
Act in accordance with whatever is good, what makes the world better. Yes, sir.
Say the truth all the time.
Say this. Sorry?
The truth.
Say the truth.
Say the truth. Tell the truth. Okay. Well, I like all of these definitions. Here are a few that I more or less align with some of the things you've said: honest, respectful, compassionate, law-abiding, caring. And using these definitions that we've been talking about and these on the screen, I don't think entrepreneurs are any more or less ethical than people in other fields, than doctors, lawyers, or Indian chiefs. But there is another sense of the word in which I think entrepreneurs are uniquely ethical. And I'd like to tell you about that. Entrepreneurs provide new solutions to customer and human needs. And that has two benefits. One, it has an immediate benefit because the entrepreneur is satisfying the customer. The benefits both the customer and the entrepreneur because there's a free exchange of value which is taking place that's voluntary. And unless it's a win-win, it's not going to happen. If either party doesn't want that transaction to happen, it won't happen. So that's direct and immediate. But there's another sense that entrepreneurs, by creating these new solutions to human needs, create new positive sum situations, new voluntary exchange opportunities that did not exist before. And that benefits everyone. And that is an indirect long-term benefit. So let me, to make this point more clearer, let me take you back 50,000 years to the Flintstones. How many people here are familiar with the Flintstones? Let's go with the Flintstones. All right, yes. There's Wilma, Dino, and Barney. And this is before there were any inventions, no tools, no inventions, and the only way that they could feed themselves was by catching rodents with their bare hand. Not very appealing, is it? And it's also zero sum, because if Dino catches a rodent, there's one less rodent for Wilma or Barney to capture. And if Dino and Barney get in a fight over a rodent, who gets to get it, that's going to be negative sum, right? Because they're giving each other a black eye and broken arms and so forth. So another way to look at that is there's a single dimension of human need which is being satisfied, hunger. And they all exist on that dimension, and so it is a zero or negative sum situation. Well, now let's fast forward a few tens of thousands of years and say that Wilma invents the spear. Okay, now there are two dimensions of customer needs that we can satisfy. Directly catching rodents and being able to make spears so that people can hunt better. So Wilma may specialize in making spears, and she can exchange those spears for food. Dino may specialize and become efficient at hunting using Wilma's spears, which he swaps. And everyone has new freedom to pursue any combination of hunting or making spears, or in effect, any point in that triangle, that graded triangle, are different positions people can occupy. So people have a lot more freedom now. They're not directly competing with each other. The more dimensions of this space there are, the more we can all pursue whatever it is we want to pursue without directly competing. Well, let's add one more dimension. And let's say Barney discovers how to control fire. So there's a third dimension of customer need, human need, which is being satisfied, staying warm. Here, there's Barney. And now everyone can pursue any combination of hunting, making spears, or controlling fires. In short, anyone can occupy any point in that tetrahedron. Well, fast forward to the present, the number of degrees of customer needs that are being satisfied is in the billions, trillions, quadrillions, far more than the 6 billion people in the world, or 8 billion people in the world. And so there are many more dimensions of customer needs that we can find in that huge space to occupy than there are people, so we don't have to have a zero or negative sum situation. So, and in fact, this is one of the figures in the book, chapter 26, figure 2. All such win-wins in aggregate drive economic growth, improvements in standard of living, quality of life. If Wilma can make spears, if Barney can provide fire, if the potential is much greater than it is if we're all trying to do everything. And so that entrepreneurship creates innovation, leads to innovation, win-wins, economic growth, higher standards of living, and increased quality of life. So this suggests to me a new possible meaning for the word ethical, that which shifts a zero or negative sum situation to positive sum. And here are a bunch of examples of that. This is also one of the figures in the book. All the left-hand things are zero or negative sum characteristics, and the things in the right are positive sum. So anything that shifts the left to the right, by this definition, is ethical, and anything that shifts in the other direction, unethical. The late, great Steve Jobs, founder of Apple Computer, was often said to be unethical because he wasn't philanthropic in his lifetime. It is true that he was not very philanthropic at all. even though he was a billionaire. The philanthropy from his wealth has mainly come from his wife after he passed away. But look at all the good he did in the world, in Apple. Starting way back in the earliest days, he made computing easier so that anyone could use a personal computer. I'm old enough to remember what the IBM PC and Microsoft's operating system were like in the early days, MS-DOS. Does anyone remember MS-DOS? A few of us. It was cumbersome, a command line interpreter, hard to use. That Apple introduced or brought to the personal computer a graphical user interface. They optimized it for desktop publishing and later graphics, created whole new industries of individuals who could be self-employed as desktop publishers or as graphics artists. Whole new industries opened up as a result. The iPod enabled you for the first time to carry around 1,000 songs in your pocket, providing massive entertainment for people. FaceTime enabled people to easily stay in touch with their loved ones. The iPhone provided a platform for all of the apps that we see today. If you consider the entire supply chain from the components and subassemblies on one hand, all of the platforms they make, the MacBook, the iPhone, and iPad and so forth, all the way to the apps, millions of millionaires have been created. He has done tremendous good in the world just by finding new solutions to unsatisfied customer needs. Each and every one of us in this room can do the same on whatever scale we are able to or feel comfortable doing. We don't need credentials. We don't need permission. We just need to go out there and do it. So go out there and have fun doing it. Thank you for having me these last 2 days. Well, any questions or comments about anything that we've talked about? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so yesterday I asked a question and you said you can ask me tomorrow for everyone. So that was the one thing you could tell everyone so that we could remember from you.
What was the thing that you wanted?
Listen from you so that we can remember while checking.
Yes. Okay, so what lesson would I tell my 21-year-old self?
You said 21, yeah. But okay.
Is that okay? So what lesson would I tell my 21-year-old self that I didn't know back then that I've learned about over the decades in between? Well, I have to apologize that my answer to this question is so boring. But it is nonetheless still the best answer I can come up with, which is the importance of honesty and humility. And if you could see clearly on the front end all of the downside that will accrue to you by being arrogant or dishonest, it would be a clear no-brainer to be honest and humble. But on the front end, we can't see the downside clearly of the negative consequences of being dishonest or arrogant. And so in the moment, it often seems like the optimal strategy is to, short-term strategy at least, is to be dishonest or arrogant. But people will remember for the rest of their lives if you've not treated them fairly or been dishonest or been arrogant. And they won't want to interact with you again or deal with you again, and so that could be an important relationship for the rest of your life that isn't there. I think of it as a stream of cash flows and calculating the net present value of those cash flows. How many people here are familiar with the concept of net present value? We have so many finance people in the room. I think many of you, maybe most of you, are familiar. Well, there are a bunch of negative cash flows, and if you take the discounted present value of those to the present, the net present value is almost certainly negative, if that helps you think about it. Yes, ma'am.
I know you mentioned you were an angel investor. Could you maybe tell us about your favorite project that you have invested in?
Well, one company I'm very fond of is QNect. You probably haven't heard of it. They're not that large, but they automate an important aspect of construction automation. So there are platforms out there that automate for construction engineers and architects the beams and girders required, how strong, how many, how close they have to be placed together in designing a building or a skyscraper. But what QNect does is they focus on a very specific aspect, which is the bolts required. How many bolts are required to hold those beams and girders in place? And there are certain regulations that govern that. For example, the number of bolts required in San Francisco, where we have earthquakes, it has to be stronger than, say, in some other area where there aren't any earthquakes. And this app does the calculations to optimize all that. Without the app, construction engineers usually use rules of thumb, but those are often too crude, and they may overestimate or underestimate, and this does it exactly. As a result, you can minimize the amount of bolts that you need, the number of holes that you have to drill for the bolts, and the amount of material that has to be brought to the construction site. All of that is a huge savings, especially for, say, a skyscraper, as you can imagine. So that's a company that I've invested in that I'm very excited about. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
When you're investing in companies, what qualities do you look for in the founders?
Well, as I said, the very first thing I listen for is a real unsatisfied customer need. And I have to be persuaded that the need is real. I may have to do some research to maybe, for example, in the area of building construction automation, I have to maybe talk to people who are in that field because it's not my expertise. So that's one thing. Then a second thing is, I don't mean to say second in importance, but I also the team. Have they done it before? The CEO of QNect has started a couple of companies before, one which has been successful, one of which was not successful. That's okay. As we talked about yesterday, whether you're successful or unsuccessful, by trying a lot of things, you expand the size of the circle of what you can accomplish with a given set of resources. So I consider the team. Some VCs just focus on the team. And if they're really satisfied this is a super capable team, they'll say, great, I'm investing in the team. You go figure out what you're going to do. That's one approach that is out there. All the other elements that I listed on the ideal business plan that you'll find in the book and on that slide, all of them are important, but those are two in particular.
Last question.
Yes, let's see, did you ask a question already? I think you did, but if there was another question. Yes, sir.
More personal, what was the best decision that you've made throughout your career?
Oh, God. I did not want to sell customer sat when we did, but Ernie Pomerantz on my board, who had been a VC with Warburg Pincus, a major New York private equity firm, for many years. Very experienced, very savvy investor. Said, John, you know, it's been 7 years since we raised capital. You can't keep your investors waiting indefinitely, and we're not big enough to go public, so you need to start thinking about selling the business. And I started the process kind of dragging my feet and against my will because I was having so much fun running the business. And we sold the company on March 31st, 2008. And as you know, the financial crisis happened in the fall of that year, August, September, October, and just the whole market collapsed. So the timing worked out well, completely fortuitously. We didn't know that was coming. So that was a good decision where I was just lucky, I guess.
And the second best, speaking to students at the Classical Liberalism and Business Center.
It's been very fun. Thank you again for having me.